Whose notebook was this, Wanda? Was that yours?
Yeah.
Summer? Very awesome. So how many?
Are we ready?
Yes, I know. I'm going to take a picture of this coat then.
All right. We're in the Coes. We're growing up in the area of Richwood, West Virginia. The great timber boom was just coming to an end, but it was still happening. And at this point, Richwood was peaked at a town of about 7,000 people. And they had photo studios with professional photographers that would take family portraits and portraits of funerals and what have you. And there was a man named Finley Taylor. And our host here, our videographer here today, Mark Romano, is one of the historians, photographers himself, and historian in the not just a historian and not just a aesthetic critic of photography, but he appreciates this particular Finley Taylor, who worked in Richwood for decades, taking the mundane photos of people that he really didn't know well, just to earn a living and support his family. But he also had a vision through that lens that he captured the emotions of so many people. And this will give you an example, and I'm just grateful for people like Luther Taylor and Mark Romano, who have managed to collect photography plates. Some of these were taken over 100 years ago now. And these are pictures that have a power, because you're not just seeing a picture of a person, you are seeing the depth of what the human soul of that person. You see it in their faces, you see it in the way they're posed. I particularly like this one because the man on the young man on the left is Billy Hammonds, who just departed this plane a month or two ago. I had the pleasure of interviewing Billy Hammonds about 15 years ago and was totally impressed with the fact that this man remembered every experience, every day of his entire life. George Coe, who had moved to the Pacific Northwest after timbering on Cranberry Ridge, came back to Richwood for a visit in the 1930s. Billy Hammonds was a young man in the 1930s, and he remembers having met George Coe, and what he remembers is George had a pet coyote that he brought with him with his family back to Richwood, and Billy remembers that. Billy was among some of the loggers when the last area to be timbered, to my knowledge, was around Tea Creek up on the Williams River. And that was probably about the late 20s, early 30s. And then there were some devastating fires that burned up the whole Black Mountain area and up there in the headwaters of the Cranberry and headwaters of the Williams River. But through Mark and through Luther Taylor, these photos they'll be memorialized for, if that's even a word, memorialized for generations to come.
The woman on the cover.
And my name is Jim Coe, and Lester Coe was my father, and Ori Coe and Virgie Green Coe, who we talked about here in this reunion today, were my grandparents. And for all I know, the studio photo of my grandparents might have been done in the studio of Finley Taylor.
Does that woman have a tattoo?
Yes.
Wow, that had to have been
And
very
read the story about that tattoo. I'm gonna turn this story over to our niece Elizabeth, because she noticed this photo, and the story behind the photo is just as rich. So.
Come on, Elizabeth.
Now, this is volume, if I could put in a shameless commercial plug for somebody else, this is collection number 3, and I understand collection number 4 is going to be published yet this year. Am I correct, Mark? But I bought this at the library in Richwood during the ramp feed back in April, and I'm going to collect them all because I'm not holding up just one thing. What I'm holding up works on 4 or 5 different levels, including the personal suffering, I might say, that Finley Taylor experienced himself. So I recommend buying one of these so you can discover this too.